The CCA workbench is where the rigs and techniques happen.
No tricks up my sleeve.
No tricks. But you know what? Let's talk a little bit about wire.
Well, you know, if you're going to be going offshore and tackling some of these toothy critters like wahoos and kingfish that we have out there this time of year, you're going to have to use some stainless steel wire. And this is, you know, single strand wire, and it's great because the fish can't bite through it, and it's easy to make connections out of. It breaks where you want it to break all the time. Unlike a lot of monofilaments where you don't know where they're going to break. It may say on the label it's 20 pounds. It may break at 25 or 30 or whatever. The world's strongest 20-pound. Wire is not that way. It breaks where it says it. It's easy to make that tension strength to where it breaks where it's supposed to, which is a lot of times why we used it for big marlin, because we knew when we had 130-pound 040 wire, it would break at 130 pounds or whatever the pound test was. It would break on that when we wanted it to break, a lot more than that actually.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the rigs that are typically used.
Well,
wire.
The first rig that everybody, you know, offshore learns is something called a pin rig, and this is it. You know, this is probably a number 7 wire, which breaks about 40 pounds, which is perfect for kingfish and most of the fish, you know, dolphin, whatever. You know, you're going to run across. This 40-pound leader will probably stand up to it. If you're catching some great big wahoos or something, you might want to go up to number 10 wire, which breaks at 100 pounds or 131 pounds. So, you know, it'll be a little harder for a really big fish to scissor through it. Believe it or not, a big wahoo can scissor through some heavy wire sometimes if it gets right in a bad spot, because we've even had marlin do it with great big wire. But when you're making one of these little pin rigs for wahoos or kingfish, what you want to do is you start by making this haywire right here, and it's called a haywire twist and a bimini wrap, or a roll, but we call it a wrap. And what you do is you make you a decent loop through your hook, and you have to twist the 2 strands of wire together. And that's very important that one wire doesn't wrap around the other one, that they both twist together at the same time around each other. And you can go online and see some of them. You'll see some examples of when you have one that's wrapped around the other versus when they're both together. And you got to be careful too, because when you twist them together,
they even show you.
They show you how to do it on the back
of the Malin hard wire. They show you here's how to do the haywire twist, and then here's the Albright knot if you're tying it to monofilament.
Right, which is, I wouldn't want to do that on TV, but I can tie a haywire twist on TV. I wouldn't want to do it Albright. But there's 2 ways to connect your ballyhoo on here, and one is to use a pin and one of these, and the other is to use a copper wire. And you know, a copper wire like this will get you, you know, your ballyhoo on there, and you can just wrap it right down.
And then this deal here, once you get it started.
Correct. You can wrap it all the way down. Let me get my ballyhoos out.
Dave has forgot that he had ballyhoos.
No, I didn't forget them.
You didn't? Looks like you did to me.
I didn't want them to get all...
Didn't you need me to cut that for you?
Yeah, I didn't want them to get all messed up.
All right, so here we are. Way to go, Dave.
No, we're cool.
All right, so do you break off the bill?
Yeah, I like to do it at the end usually, but you can do it at the beginning. What's good about the pin is you don't have to go through their eyeballs, so you can leave their eyeballs in.
Okay.
And what you'll do is you'll use your thumb to pull open their gill.
Right.
And we'll feed this. This is a 7-hook, 7/0. It's probably a little smaller for this ballyhoo, but we'll feed it under his collar.
Go slow, so that camera right there has got to see it, Dave.
Feed it under his collar.
Right.
And we'll push it down, and we'll see the hook of the point start to come out of his belly.
Right.
And we want it to be close to the middle.
Right.
And once we get it to where we know it's in the middle.
The middle of the belly.
Right.
Not the middle of the bait. The middle of
the middle of his belly.
Flat part.
In the middle. And we're going to push it through.
All right, turn it and show it. Look. See that, guys?
See how we got it in the middle?
Slide it up and
we'll pull
that's the camera for the
And the key to do it is to pull it with the hook side.
Right.
Don't try to stuff it in. Pull it with the hook and get it down in there to where your pin lines up with the mouth.
Okay, stick that through.
And then we'll stick the pin straight through his mouth, and we'll close his mouth. See his little mouth he's got?
Yeah.
We'll close his mouth with that pin once we get him up in there.
Good.
And then close his mouth, and then we wrap
cone.
The cone goes, slips.
Show that there.
Slides right down, and you just wind,
just keep winding that till it gets tight, yeah?
Till it gets tight.
That's slick.
And if we want to, once we get them all, you know, straight, yeah, that's pretty good. He's not too bad. So sometimes you'll want to hook your hook up as far in there as you can get, but that's not too bad. Because one time, you know, a lot of times we'll want to put a stinger on here, and that's the other good thing for the wire. What we'll do is we'll just go ahead and wire this stinger on here and stick it right in his tail.
Right.
And wire that, make another little loop on his hook, on the hook.
So one last little trick we have to say real quick, because we're out of time. But guys, Dave taught me that when you pull on this wire hard, after you've rigged it, as long as the hook stays straight, you're not going to have a twisting bally.
Right. If you pull on this and the hook doesn't move around, it's going to pull from the front. And every bait that pulls from the front is not going to spin. If it starts pulling from back here, then the bait will want to turn over and roll.
That's no bueno.
Right. And if that happens, you can just get your bait knife out and maybe give it a little slit sometimes, and then give it a room, and it'll sometimes work.
Good job.
But, well, yeah, so, yeah.
All right.
I appreciate it.
You did have some tricks up your sleeve over there. I knew it.
He's the best.
Bringing you your